countdown to tax day is on. As procrastinators race to gather information and file on time, there are important tips to ensure that you are getting the most out of your return. The last 2 weeks leading up to April 15th can be really stressful. Today, I'm joined by Mark Stieber. He's the Chief Tax Officer at Jackson Hewitt Tax Services to discuss what last-minute filers need to know to file on time. So what are your top tips for those that have waited until the very last minute to file their tax return?
Well, first of all, you're in good company. Tens of millions of people have waited to the last minute. That being said, time is no longer your friend. You do need to get a plan of action. And it can be a simple plan. Locate your prior year documents. You should have all of them by now and in that envelope or in that shoebox, and get that ready. Find last year's tax return to go with the current year documents. That's a good tip sheet for what you should have in your file. Locate your convenient, locally, owned and operated tax professional. There's plenty in your area. You'll know them when you see them. It's not one of these pop-ups. So you want to have your documents, last year's tax return, and also you want to have a tax pro you can trust with your largest single financial transaction. And if you don't have all your documents, it's important that you find them or have your tax pro help you find them, because there's no guesstimating or estimating. If you're not exactly correct on your tax return, that could result in questions from the IRS, delays in your refund, and a whole lot of other problems. So get your documents, get your last year tax return, find your tax pro, put a date on the calendar, and get it done.
So what happens if you don't file your taxes on time or even miss the deadline?
Yeah, there's a lot of significant potential penalties if you don't file your taxes by the deadline, and also a lot of misinformation out there about don't worry about it. The reality is there's a failure to file penalty of upwards of 25% plus interest if you miss the deadline to send in either your tax return or a qualified extension. Also, if you owe a balance due, there's another separate 25% potential penalty for failure to pay your taxes, plus interest, plus monies to clean that up. And finally, if you didn't pay your taxes throughout the year because of your side hustle or crypto, there's an underpayment penalty potential of another 25% plus interest. And also, there's other risks and consequences to not filing your taxes. We're starting to see a lot of employers, bank lenders, certification companies that say, hey, have you filed your taxes? Are you compliant? And if you're not, then that's another indicator to them that you might not be a good fit. So it's not just the IRS and state penalties, but also other implications to your credit score, your employment, your certification that can also be impacted by not complying with your tax filing obligations.
How do tax extensions work? And are there benefits that taxpayers can get from filing an extension? And what might they need to know about filing for one?
Yeah, a lot of people at this time of year say, I've just run out of time. I've heard I'll just extend it. It's automatic. And while that's partially true, there's a lot of misunderstanding on the extension process. First of all, there is a 6-month automatic extension of time to file that anybody can take advantage of. You send in your 4868 extension by mail, or you can electronically file it. A pro can do it, or you can even do it yourself. But here's the thing. That's only a 6-month extension of time to file your paperwork, not to pay any taxes that you owe. That's due by midnight of tax day. So you kind of have to work up all the information, then file your extension, and then do your taxes again at tax time when you come up against that second deadline. So it's never really a good idea, especially if you're just missing a single piece of paper. So you can file an extension, but it's only to do your taxes and get your paperwork in later, not to pay your taxes. They're due by deadline, midnight on tax day.
So what should those impacted by natural disasters know about their tax return that might be different?
Yeah, there's been no shortage of natural disasters in 2024, and I live in Florida, and we certainly had hurricanes. You've seen the fires out in the West, in the Midwest flooding. So I'll simply say this. A lot of media point out the extra time that you get if you're in a federally declared disaster area. Extensions of time to file, extensions of time to pay. And that may seem like a good thing, and it is. But there's a whole lot more in the tax code related to people in these federally declared disaster areas, which you can find out on the IRS website or the FEMA website if you're in a county or a zip code that has this. The thing I would leave you with is if you've been economically impacted by a natural disaster, especially a federally declared disaster, know that it's a lot more than just more time to file. There's the ability to take that loss as a tax deduction on your current tax return or a future tax return. There's the ability to take a loss and carry it backwards and recover prior paid taxes with an expedited refund process and getting you some much needed money very quickly. So again, if there's a lot of reasons to see a tax pro, the number one is if you've got a natural disaster and an economic loss, you need to find out what your options are, and I promise you it's a lot more than just some extra time to file.
And finally, where can we go to learn more information?
Well, there's a lot of information out on the websites and internet on tax information. The irs.gov website's an excellent one, but we are really proud of our jacksonhewitt.com website. We have frequently asked questions, we have calculator tools, we have videos, and a whole lot of other information that makes it really easy to understand your tax situation or your tax question. The one thing I really like is the office locator. There's a little box, you put your zip code in, up pops the map, you click on it and find an office near you, make an appointment, or just get that address and come right on in. As it's the final days, we've got extra staff, extra hours. Most good tax companies do. JacksonHewitt.com for all your needs, whether we do your taxes or not, but most importantly, to find an office and get your taxes done today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great morning.